The mahogany conference table gleamed under the fluorescent lights as I reviewed the financial reports one final time. Soon, this room would become a battlefield, and these numbers would be my weapons. My name is Angela Chin, and after 3 years of watching my brothers systematically loot our family's company, I was finally ready to expose everything. Kin Global Logistics had been our family's pride for 2 generations. What started as my father's small shipping company had grown into a major player in international logistics, with operations across Asia and the Americas. Now, thanks to my brother Michael's schemes, it was bleeding money through dozens of carefully hidden channels. Not that anyone else could see it. Michael, with his Harvard MBA and slick presentations, had convinced the board that our financial problems were my fault. As chief financial officer, I was the perfect scapegoat for his elaborate fraud. Another late night, Angela? Michael's voice carried its usual mix of condescension and false concern as he passed my office. You really should learn to delegate more. All this obsession with details, it's not healthy. I looked up from my screens, maintaining the facade of the overwhelmed younger sister that he'd so carefully crafted. Just reviewing the quarterly numbers, Michael. You know how particular the board is about accuracy. He smiled, the same smile he used when convincing our father to make him CEO 2 years ago. Don't worry too much about tomorrow's meeting. I'm sure we can find you a less demanding role in the company. After you left, I returned to my analysis. On the surface, everything in our books looked legitimate. Michael had been clever, using a complex web of shell companies and consulting contracts to disguise his theft. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I hadn't earned my CPA and forensic accounting certification just to be a corporate puppet. The first signs of trouble had appeared 6 months after Michael became CEO. Small discrepancies in international wire transfers, consulting fees that didn't quite add up, shipping routes that made no logical sense. Each anomaly was minor enough to escape casual notice, but together they told a story of systematic fraud. I started gathering evidence quietly, careful to maintain my image as the dutiful but somewhat naive sister. Every time Michael patronizingly explained away my concerns, I added another piece to my investigation. Every time he blamed me for financial shortfalls in board meetings, I traced another thread of his scheme. You need to see this, my assistant Lisa whispered one evening, slipping a USB drive onto my desk. A former forensic accountant herself, she'd been helping me unravel Michael's web of deception. The Panama Shell Company, it links back to accounts in the Cayman Islands. Working late into the night, we followed the money trail. Michael had created an intricate network of fake suppliers, inflated contracts, and offshore accounts. While the company's legitimate operations struggled, millions were being siphoned away through his shadow network. The evidence was devastating. Transfer records, forged documents, secret account statements, all pointing to a massive fraud orchestrated by the company's trusted CEO. But I needed more than just paper trails. I needed to understand why. The answer came from an unexpected source. Carol from Human Resources dropped by my office, ostensibly to discuss benefit packages. Once the door was closed, she told me about conversations she overheard between Michael and unknown partners. They're planning to sell the company, she said quietly. Break it up and sell the pieces to competitors. The fraud isn't just about stealing money. It's about devaluing the company for a hostile takeover. The pieces clicked into place. Michael wasn't just embezzling funds, he was deliberately weakening our company to make it vulnerable to acquisition. The financial mismanagement he blamed on me was part of a larger strategy to justify selling our family's legacy. I spent the next week preparing meticulously. Every transaction was documented, every false contract traced to its source. I coordinated with bank investigators, regulatory authorities, and corporate security. The trap was set. The morning of the quarterly board meeting, Michael strode into my office, radiating false sympathy. Angela, before we go in, I want you to know this isn't personal. Business is business. Sometimes changes need to be made for the good of the company. I nodded, playing my part one last time. Of course, Michael. I understand. The boardroom filled quickly. Board members, department heads, even some major shareholders Michael had invited to witness my humiliation. He had orchestrated everything perfectly, or so he thought. Before we begin, Michael announced, standing at the head of the table, we need to address the serious financial issues facing Chen Global Logistics. As CEO, I have a responsibility to take decisive action when leadership fails. He launched into his presentation, each slide carefully crafted to show declining performance and questionable decisions, all blamed, directly or indirectly, on me. The numbers don't lie, he declared, reaching his crescendo. Under the current financial management, we've lost millions. It's time for a change. The board members nodded solemnly. They'd seen the numbers Michael wanted them to see, drawn the conclusions he'd led them toward. Everything was proceeding exactly as he planned. "You're right, Michael," I said quietly, standing up. "The numbers don't lie. They tell quite a story, in fact. Would you like to see the real numbers?" The first hint of uncertainty flickered across his face as I connected my laptop to the projector. In the front row, Lisa and Carol sat ready with additional documentation. Years of careful preparation were about to pay off. "Let me show you," I continued, pulling up the first set of records, "exactly where those millions really went." The first slide appeared on the screen, a complex flowchart showing money movements through various shell companies. Michael's confident smile froze as he recognized the account numbers. "As you can see," I continued calmly, "these transfers from our operating accounts didn't actually go to suppliers. They were routed through a series of shell companies before ending up in private accounts in the Cayman Islands." "This is ridiculous," Michael tried to interrupt, but his voice had lost its usual authority. "These are standard business transactions." "Really?" I clicked to the next slide. "Standard business transactions with companies that don't exist?" Let's look at Global Shipping Solutions, our largest new supplier. Incorporated 6 months ago, no physical address, no employees, and coincidentally sharing a bank account number with your personal offshore holdings. The boardroom erupted in murmurs. Board members leaned forward, studying the evidence with growing concern. Michael's carefully constructed facade was beginning to crack. "Lisa." I nodded to my assistant, who began distributing thick folders to each board member. "You'll find complete documentation of every fraudulent transaction for the past 3 years. Bank records, false contracts, forged authorizations, all traced back to their source." Michael made one last attempt to regain control. "This is a desperate attempt by a failing executive to deflect blame." Actually, a new voice cut in from the doorway. "This is the result of a 6-month federal investigation into corporate fraud and money laundering." Special Agent Sarah Torres from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit stepped into the room, followed by 2 other agents. "Mr. Chen, we have some questions about certain international wire transfers." The color drained from Michael's face as Agent Torres continued. "We've been working with Ms. Chen and her team to document systematic fraud amounting to over $75 million. But the attempted hostile takeover, that was a surprise even to us." "Hostile takeover?" our board chairman asked sharply. I pulled up another set of documents, emails between Michael and executives at our largest competitors, discussing the planned sale of Chang Global Logistics assets at fire sale prices. "The fraud wasn't just about stealing money," I explained. "It was about weakening the company deliberately, making it vulnerable to acquisition. Michael has been working with Dover Logistics to arrange a takeover once our stock price fell low enough." Carol stepped forward, adding her testimony about the conversations she overheard. Other employees began speaking up, sharing pieces of evidence they'd gathered over the years but had been afraid to reveal. Michael looked around wildly, seeing his support evaporate. "You don't understand," he tried, his composure finally breaking. "Dover offered me a position as CEO of their Asian operations. We could have been part of something bigger." "We already were part of something bigger," I cut in. "This company isn't just about profits or market share. It's about the legacy Dad built, the families who depend on us, the trust our partners place in us." As the FBI agents led Michael away for questioning, the board moved quickly to address the crisis. Emergency measures were implemented to secure accounts and reassure stakeholders. Years of damage would need to be undone. Dad came out of retirement temporarily to help stabilize the company. The look on his face when he finally understood the full scope of Michael's betrayal was heartbreaking. "I should have seen it," he said quietly as we worked late one night. "All those times he dismissed your concerns." "He counted on people underestimating me," I replied. "The quiet accountant who just didn't understand modern business methods." The recovery took months. We had to rebuild relationships with suppliers, restore employee trust. and implement new financial controls. But gradually, Chen Global Logistics began to heal. 6 months after Michael's arrest, I stood in our Shanghai office, watching containers being loaded with a precision and efficiency that had made our company great. Lisa joined me at the window. "The new compliance systems are working perfectly," she reported. "Every transaction traceable, every authorization verified. No more shadows to hide in." I nodded, thinking of the lessons we'd learned. Trust is essential in family businesses, but it needs to be paired with transparency and accountability. Michael's betrayal had taught us that the hard way. The legal proceedings were extensive, but the evidence was overwhelming. Michael had betrayed not just his family, but hundreds of employees who had trusted him to lead responsibly. The attempted hostile takeover added charges of corporate espionage to his fraud convictions. Yet from those ashes, something stronger emerged. Chen Global Logistics developed new governance structures with robust checks and balances. Transparency became more than just a buzzword. It was built into every process, every decision. 1 year after the board meeting that changed everything, we gathered for a different kind of meeting. Employee ownership shares were being distributed, making everyone invested in the company's success. The culture of fear and secrecy that Michael had created was replaced with open communication and shared responsibility. Dad spoke at the ceremony, looking both proud and wistful. "Your grandfather," he told the assembled employees, "built this company on a foundation of trust and integrity. Sometimes it takes a crisis to remind us what really matters." I kept Michael's old nameplate from the boardroom, not as a trophy but as a reminder. Success built on deception never lasts. True leadership isn't about control or power. It's about building something that helps everyone succeed together. The company flourished under the new structure. Our logistics innovation team, free from the artificial financial constraints Michael had imposed, developed breakthrough systems. Employee morale soared. Even our stock price reached new highs as the market recognized our renewed strength. Sometimes late at night, I still look at old family photos and wonder how things might have been different. If Michael had channeled his ambition into building rather than destroying, what might we have achieved together? But the past can't be changed. What matters is the future we build from its lessons. Chen Global Logistics survived not just because we exposed the fraud, but because we used that crisis to become better, stronger, more transparent. That's the real legacy now, not just a successful company, but a testament to the power of truth over deception, of collaboration over control, of building something that lasts. And somewhere, I know grandfather would be proud of that.